Hey guys, welcome to our new studio. Not as not as big as the old studio. Still missing a little bit of the color, but we're gonna bring that back as we grow. We
just moved in, so we didn't move in together.
No, I moved in,
but he moved in. But we're moving into the studio, so still got some decorating to do. But we're here. It's a shooting day for us, so we're in it to win it. We're here. We've got a beautiful window for some natural light. We've got some umbrellas here. But we're really, we're cooking with gas.
We're cooking.
We just got
peanut oil.
Throw some ingredients in.
Yeah.
But we're cooking.
We're cooking. So. Speaking of gas, speaking of bringing the heat, what's happening right now is we are trying this beer called Boss Tweed by Old Nation Brewing. We had their M43 on the show, and this was sent to us by a Better on Draft partner. His name is Matt, and he's hilarious. If you didn't ever listen to that, go back. Anyway, it makes me wonder, is New England IPA really a style worth getting invested in?
Glub, 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 glub. So guys, as always, in our new video format, we are going to do a mini review of Boss Tweed in just a little bit, so stay tuned, and then stay tuned to the end of the show for our full score. But we are going to go ahead and we're going to just start sipping on it now. But the question today is the New England IPA, is it a legit style? Is it a fad? Is it going to burn out? What's the deal with the New England IPA style?
Yeah, I mean, it is like the biggest thing in craft beer right now. You can't, every brewery has to have one. You can't get away from it. And I think it makes a lot of brewers upset because A, they have to try and fit into this style that they've never tried before. It's a whole new ball game for them. B, it kind of breaks all the rules of brewing. You know what I mean? So like, imagine if someone 5 years ago, 10 years ago, poured you this beer. Man, would you be like, hey, something, you got the bottom of the keg, something's messed up. You'd probably be like, can I get a new one?
I remember when I first started drinking craft beer, not too far into it, I had gone up to Right Brain Brewing in Traverse City. Brought home a Spinal Tapper, which is an IPA of theirs, and I remember looking in the bottle, and all the yeast at the bottom, I was like, whoa, that cannot be right. And it probably was. I mean, it's probably totally fine.
Oh, I mean, drinking yeast is fine. No one.
Yeah, but as a new beer drinker, I was like, there is something horrifically wrong with this beer.
Right, because every beer you've ever seen up until that point has been crystal clear, light yellow. You know what I mean?
Well, and even when we were getting
refined.
Even when we were getting into Brew Review Crew, we were going and trying all these beers, like, it was actually, I felt like a trend to get your beer as crystal clear and filtered as possible.
Clarity is one of the things that gets judged on.
Like, I felt like as we were going to places, beers were like, I mean, it was getting to a point where you're like, wow, that is like so filtered. It's literally like looking through a window. I mean, there's no opaqueness at all to this beer.
Right, and that can be a beautiful thing, but in the case of the New England IPA, screw that.
Well,
and you know what?
It's like the pendulum swung the complete other way.
Right, and that's not the only defining factor of this style, the NE IPA. It's it's what it's brewed with. It's how the flavors are supposed to present themselves. So like this should be very hop forward in terms of flavor, but not hop forward in terms of bitterness. You're not gonna have to take a sip of water after one of these and be like, let me wash out that bitterness. And they're supposed to use those American juicy style hops, the Citra, the Mosaic, the El Dorado, things like that are more melon and juice forward.
Yeah.
And so it kind of brings out these different flavors than, say, a Pliny, which is a little bit more on the cat pea, the pine side, the pledge, lemon, kind of Cascade style. I don't really know if this needs its own subsect of IPAs or if this should just be called an IPA. Do you really think it's that? Well,
you're more into the brewing aspect of it than I am. Is this a accepted style in beer competitions?
I think they're just adding it now.
Okay.
Which is something that I think is kind of a big deal, and why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like if you were to put this into an IPA category, it would get marked off for so many things. There's so many quote unquote flaws. But the flavor, the thing that really should be the only thing that matters, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the flavor of these beers, it's just off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, really, just about all of them that I've had have been phenomenal. And now, if you go on to, like, the beer Reddit or the For Trade in Search Of or the beer porn on Instagram, it's all these super hazy IPAs.
Yeah.
I mean, it is truly like the beer of 2016-17.
And I really think like Treehouse had a lot to do with that. Trillium, obviously Heady Topper, that Vermont kind of IPA scene in Ohio.
But is that why Heady Topper wanted to be in a can to hide the hazy?
I don't know. They say it tastes better out of a can, but I could see that being the case where they wanted to be like, listen, our beer doesn't look as pretty, so drink it from the can. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. I think the one thing that the haze does reflect is freshness. You know, as a beer ages and as it sits in lower temperatures, a lot of that yeast, especially good yeast, will flock out. It'll drop to the bottom of the fermenter. It'll clear the beer. That's why lagers, they're aged really long and they're usually crystal clear. If you want an IPA, you want to drink it as fresh as you can because that's when the hops are at their best. So really, by saying, oh, I got the haziest one, in a way you're saying I got the freshest one, which isn't a bad thing.
What do you think, like, the Bavarians would have thought of this beer?
They would pour this down the drain. No, I don't know. I feel like brewery purists, which I kind of find myself being one. Like, I'm really about like traditional styles and all that.
So you're not gonna brew a New England IPA?
I really don't plan on it. No, okay. With Twin Oast opening plug, we don't plan on. I plan on doing a good hop forward, flavorful IPA, but I don't know. I feel like this is actually a fad. I feel like come back to me in 3 years and it'll all have died down. There won't be much talk about it. I mean, Gozas kind of went through that same thing. Westbrook made the world go crazy about Gozas, and everyone had to have a Goza, and now they're still out there, but they're not like the style everyone's looking for. And I feel like you can only do so much with this style.
Mm-hmm.
And they all start to
have
taste
that
the same,
similar sort of. Yeah, I agree. Well, Corey, I think, speaking of the flavor, now would be a great time to pause and go into our mini review of Old Nation's Boss Tweed. This is a cousin or a sister to M43. Yeah. This is Boss Tweed, a New England IPA.
Brother.
Yeah, the big brother.
Because it's a double IPA. And, I mean, when you think of double IPA, normally you think of, like, these crazy, intense flavors. And you get that here, but I don't feel like it's an overwhelming presence.
I don't find it to be very aggressive at all.
No.
I'm getting just a ton of orange juice. I mean, it's almost like a beer mosa.
Right.
That we've had from Wolf's Ridge in Columbus, Ohio. They've got a beer mosa. I mean, it's really kind of borderlining that. It has even sort of that like champagne-y in there. I mean, it's sort of bubbly and it's very reminiscent of a beer mosa.
Yeah, I get a lot of those citric kind of fruit flavors. You get the orange, the tangerine. You get some mango. You get a little bit of like pineapple kind of going on in there as well.
Super tropical.
But the bitterness is actually pleasant. It's not too aggressive. It's pretty sharp, but it's sharp in the way that like reminds me that there's hops and not that I'm just drinking juice.
Is it sweet to you?
Yeah, but the bitterness balances it out in a nice way, which is what I like.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I almost feel like if I didn't know this was a beer and you gave it to me, I might even say it's not like a wine cooler, but it's something you'd find in like that wine cooler aisle.
Kind of like a Alka-Pop.
Yeah, just something very fruity and definitely like beachy, but it doesn't strike me.
It's almost shandy-ish.
Yes,
yeah. It's almost shandy-ish.
Yeah, and it's very well put. I just don't know that it reminds me of an IPA.
No, which is why I guess we're gonna take a tea and go back to our conversation. I guess the fact that it doesn't remind you of an IPA makes the New England IPA style validated as its own style, right?
Or it detracts from it and say that it's not IPA enough. I mean, I think your point to a shandy or a radler was pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean it's close.
Even just sitting in my belly, and you obviously can't feel this, but I feel like the feeling is different than if I'm drinking like a Two Hearted.
Right.
Versus this, it's pretty sweet, but not, to my knowledge, artificially
it's more taste, less filling.
Yes.
Is that what you're kind of going for? You feel like you can have more of these.
Yeah.
Which I think part of the crushability of them is is something that people love.
Very drinkable. It's almost like an anomaly. I don't really know what to make of it.
Right, and I think you're proving the point. I think you are pushing me closer to believing this needs to be its own style. Because at first I was like, just call it an IPA and it'll all even itself out.
I don't think it would be fair to judge this against a Headhunter, a Two Hearted, a Pliny.
Right.
And if you're gonna get, Orange Julius, and you're gonna get all these big Treehouse, Hoof Hearted. Looking back on it, I don't know if it was fair to have Hoof Hearted in the King of Ohio IPA contest.
Because it wasn't really, I mean, that won.
Yeah.
And it was one of these kind of IPAs.
Yeah. And it's much different than an IPA, so maybe it does deserve its own style. It certainly would not be fair. It's just not in the same flavor experience.
Do you think it's a fad?
I do think it's a fad.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even sustainable to brew to make this like a full time all the time. It seems very ingredient intensive.
Yes.
And so I also think they're all kind of getting muddled, as you said, as far as the experience goes. But IPAs are similar to that. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I think it is.
I give it 3 years. Check back on this video and that date. We'll talk then.
Well, Corey, now that we've reached the end of the video, what is your verdict on the Old Nation Boss Tweed Double IPA?
Double New England IPA.
Double New England IPA.
I'm going a 98.
All that being said.
Yeah, all that being said, this is a really phenomenal beer. Like, as a beer, not as an IPA, but as a beer, it's just good. It's juicy. It's tropical. It's everything I want in the flavors of hops. So it really appeals to me as a beer drinker.
I liked M43 better myself.
Oh, you did?
See, I think this is actually a little over the top as far as just there's a lot happening. It's really good. I mean, I'm going to give it like a 93. So I'm giving it an A, but I just think like the aroma is really nice, the flavor's nice, but the overall experience, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a sensory overload for me at least. It's really, really good, but I'm going to go a little less than you.
Okay. I want you to put in your favorite New England style IPA or just talk to us. What do you think? Is it really a style? Is it a fad? Are these your favorite beers in the world? Put those in the comment section below, and until then, always remember,
we are the Brew Review Crew.
We'll review
a brew for you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was a phenomenal thing. Hey guys, if you want to help make this studio look better, because right now I think it's a little bare bones, it's a little skeletal. It could use a lot of work. One way that you're going to help support us is going to brewviewcrew.com/Amazon.
Yes.
And, just shop like you normally would, but everything that you buy gives us a little bit of a kickback because we sent you, and we will make our studio look great again. See ya.